The latest progress report documents notable progress, from a 40% decline in HIV infections since 2010 to malaria prevention saving over 12 million lives. Social protection now reaches half the world's population, while women's representation in parliaments continues to gain ground. But that progress is being undercut.
These gains show that investments in development and inclusion yield results. But let's be clear, we are not where we need to be. Only 35% of SDG targets are on track or making moderate progress. Nearly half are moving too slowly, and 18% are going in reverse. We are in a global development emergency. An emergency measured in the over 800 million people still living in extreme poverty, in intensifying climate impacts, and in relentless debt service, draining the resources that countries need to invest in their people.
The report points to a pathway to progress and urges concerted efforts across 6 investment pathways to deliver the SDGs: food systems, energy access and affordability, digital connectivity and transformation, education, jobs and social protection, and climate change, biodiversity and pollution. But even so, a call to recognize the deep linkages between underdevelopment and conflicts that caused nearly 50,000 deaths last year, while forcibly displacing tens of millions more.
That is why we must keep working for peace in the Middle East. We need an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the immediate release of all hostages, and unimpeded humanitarian access as a first step to achieve the two-state solution. We need a ceasefire between Iran and Israel to hold. We need a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, based on the UN Charter, international law, and UN resolutions. And we need an end to the horror and bloodshed in Sudan. From the DRC to Somalia, from the Sahel to Myanmar, we know that sustainable peace requires sustainable development.
What is your estimation, sir, of the impact of the decisions by the United States in recent months? We pressed the UN chief on recent decisions by the current United States administration to withdraw from various development-related initiatives, including climate finance, and the recent Financing for Development conference in Sevilla, Spain, that sought to add impetus to reforming the current global financial architecture towards the SDGs.
The problem is not the presence or not presence in international meetings. The question is that obviously we need, in an international economic and financial system that is fundamentally wrong and unfair, we need reforms. And to put obstacles to those reforms is indeed something that is extremely negative. And I hope that the countries that lead the global economy, the G7 countries, understand that it is better to lead the reforms of a system today than to wait and one day suffer the reforms of the system that will become inevitable.
The report also urges governments and partners to implement the Medellin Framework for Action, a roadmap adopted at the 2024 UN World Data Forum to strengthen data systems essential for responsive policy making. The report argues that we now find ourselves at an inflection point in human history with just 5 years left to achieve the SDGs by that 2030 deadline. The pace of change remains insufficient amid persistent inequalities that continue to limit human potential, including the vast disparities that women and people living with disabilities continue to endure, while climate change continues to accelerate at alarming levels, affecting everyone, everywhere. UN officials here argue that despite all the obstacles, the SDGs remain within reach, but only with decisive action, reforms, and investments at scale to meet the moment. Sherwin Ricebees, SABC News, New York.